Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome into the Computer America Show. We are the nation's longest running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology. Thank you for joining us. I'm your host, Ben Crossman, and I hope all of you are having a fantastic day as we get things kicked off here. And of course, we, again, I hope everyone had a great weekend. And thank you for joining us as today on the program, second part of the show, we will be doing computer and technology news. And that is a segment dedicated entirely to the latest and greatest tech news. We have a couple things to go over, including, of course, everything from what China is doing to segment the internet. That's probably one of our biggest stories, really almost this year. As well as, I think macOS Mojave was released and Microsoft Office 2019. And, a slew of acquisitions. It's been a busy day in the tech world. So that's in the second part. In the first part, though, we have an interview with a pro gamer. And, we're going to be talking about what happened, unfortunately, a couple of weeks ago with, of course, with the shooting in Jacksonville. And we're going to be talking about, just kind of the pro esports scene. Of course, not just looking at it through one unfortunate tragedy, but also, how do we improve this growing industry? So joining us in just a moment will be Mr. Ronald Casey. He is also known as SirusTheVirus, and he is waiting in the wings. But a couple of things, including computeramerica.com. That's where you'll find everything from today's show notes, which will include a link to our guest Twitch channel, as well as any articles, videos, reviews, anything like that will be in one place. So if you're busy, if you're driving, don't worry, we have you covered. Again, all of that being found at computeramerica.com, as well as the live video portion, and on top of that, the social media contest brought to you by Logitech. Okay. All that being said, why don't we go ahead, bring on our guest, and get today's show started. So as I said before, our guest today is Mr. Ronald Casey, also known as SirusTheVirus. He's a professional gamer, and we want to thank him for coming on. So Ronald, thank you so much for joining us here on Computer America. How are you doing?
Hey, Ben. Thanks for having me. I'm hanging in there, man.
That's and of course that's all that that one can expect after what you went through. It was obviously a very traumatic event, and we're going to get into that. But before we get into what happened in Jacksonville, why don't we go ahead and get some background on yourself and kind of what led you to participate in the tournament there in Jacksonville. Tell us, a bit of your background. How long have you been playing Madden NFL? Is that your primary game that you went professional in? And just give us some of your history.
Okay, so I started playing Madden in 2004, and that's when I went to my very first tournament. I didn't do too well. I was pretty young back then. I started playing when I was 16, 17 years old. And, I just had a lot of love for the game. It was something fun to play, something to be competitive in. I actually played football in high school and had an injury And so then when I had an injury, I basically took some time off from football, and that's when I found Madden. I've been playing Madden for 14 years now, and I turned pro in 2007 when I was on the show Madden Nation. I was on Madden Nation on ESPN Season 3, and I've just been playing ever since.
Very, very cool. And of course, hey, obviously having a passion for football itself, I can see how you dove into Madden and their attempt to mimic what happens on the field. So obviously, football, great, and you've seen a lot of success. You are very well known in the scene. I mean, before I came on here, I'll be blunt. I really don't follow football. Just football in general, Madden a little bit more, but not as much. And one of my friends was like, "Oh, you're interviewing, SirusTheVirus." I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "Oh, that's going to be great." So obviously, I have heard of you kind of through my friends, and very happy that you could join us. But of course, you're here also because of what happened in Jacksonville. So. For those of us who maybe have not heard about what happened there, from my understanding, there was a tournament. There were a number of people attending, and then if you want to go ahead, kind of set up the scene about how the tournament was going, and then kind of how the whole shooting actually started. That was a very traumatic. That's something that, as far as esports go, this might be, unfortunately, one of the first mass shootings that happened at an event like this. So if you would set up the event and then, kind of what happened that day.
Okay, yeah. So August 25th, 26th, we traveled to Jacksonville for the first EA Sports tournament of the year. This tournament was a qualifier, so they were supposed to have 4 mini tournaments. And if you won one of these tournaments, it would get you in the final 16 or final 8 of the big qualifier, which is where they play for all the prizes and money. So we traveled down to Jacksonville, and the tournament was actually going pretty great on Saturday. You felt like the room was really crowded, but there was a lot of good vibes on Saturday. And then Sunday came around, and that was the day of the tragedy on the 26th. The shooter, David Katz, he had a lot of mental issues, and the shooting was pretty horrific. I remember I was playing my game behind the live stream. There were some issues going on. Somebody had sent out a tweet that day, and it said something along the lines of the guy felt like killing someone. You didn't really know if he was talking about Madden. You didn't know if he was talking about, somebody in real life. You didn't really know. And it wasn't the shooter that tweeted it out. It was someone else.
Right.
So right at that time is like when the room just got like the bad vibe of people freaking out. I remember like pausing my game, and we were looking outside. One of the guys was arguing with an EA employee. And then the next thing you know, that game was over for me. It was right behind the live stream where the first person had got shot, where Eli Truboy Clayton was first. So after my game, I was walking around trying to find one of my buddies. I went and sat next to him. And within 5 minutes, right after that game where I was behind the live stream, that's when the shooting occurred, like 5 minutes later. So if I would have still been up there, I would have been literally in the mix of it.
Right.
So when the shooting took...
Oh,
Go ahead, what?
Yeah, and I was about to say, of course, you being right there, would have been horrific. But when it actually did happen, obviously you were still in the same area, and that was, kind of where we were introduced to your story, was that you didn't just sit there. So I'm sorry for interrupting, but just go from that point. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. So basically, yeah. So within that 5 minutes of sitting down, the next thing you know, we heard the first couple shots, and when I first heard the shots, instinctively, the first one was like, whoa, what was that? Then the second and third one, you automatically knew what was going on. So people were, running, diving, trying to dodge, and chairs got flipped over, people are jumping on the ground. There's really nowhere to go because the room is so small. The next thing I know is, I'm sitting there the entire time. I'm watching everyone. It's to my left. The shooter was in a hallway and just, continually shooting in the room. So the next thing I know is one of my buddies, Tolliver, he was running by. He got hit, and I'm watching all the guys dive on the ground right beside me, Matt, Joel, Franchise, a couple of these other guys, and you can smell it. Like the smell from the bullets was, it made it that much more intense.
Mm-hmm.
So when I seen Tolliver get hit, another bullet came flying by. It was really close to our heads, like it went over top of us, and at that point, I knew that I couldn't get to the shooter. There was, nobody's trained for that situation, right? But I knew I couldn't get to him. So I instinctively made the decision to get on top of the guys and, just keep my eyes open, watching to see if he was going to come in the room. And, he kept shooting. I'm laying on top of the guys. And then the next thing I know, the shooting is over. So I get up, and I don't know if he just quit shooting for a minute. I don't know if he left. Later on, we found out that he actually took himself out.
Yeah, and of course that was that's obviously the ultimate end to it. And all of the friends that you kind of labeled there. Did you know I believe it was 2 or 3 people who unfortunately passed. And do you know? I'm sorry. Did you have a personal relationship with the people that didn't make it? Like, hopefully all of your friends were especially the ones that were hit. Hopefully they recovered just fine.
Well, yeah, so I'm a pro player, and I've been in the community a long time, and these guys we're all friends, man. It's a brotherhood. Madden is a big family, and as we all grow up, we live, we learn, we make mistakes in life, and life's about making good adjustments, and you always want to make good adjustments to get better. So, True Boy, I met True Boy for the first time last year out in Las Vegas, actually hosting an event for Millennial Esports, and True Boy was great. Young kid, and I knew Taylor Robinson, Spot Me Please was his gamer tag. I had met him a couple times before, and these guys have been playing Madden for a while, and Spot Me was a really liked player throughout the entire community, and it's such an unfortunate thing that happened. I actually reached out to his wife Holly, and my heart just goes out to their families, man. I can't even imagine what they're going through, like the pain, the suffering. I can't even imagine. She watched her husband leave, go to a Madden tournament. He's trying to provide for his family and do what he's got to do, right? Trying to win some money playing Madden, and I bet you, that's the last thing she ever expected was, he's not going to come home.
Right. And
the fact that, she has a newer baby and things like that, it's just tough, man.
That of course does sound extremely difficult for her, and obviously for a lot of people there. I mean, you mentioned that NFL, the whole Madden community is very much like a family. I've seen that before with other esports. You do develop a relationship with people who have been on the scene for a long time, and outsiders. They're welcomed. I mean, video games are a very unifying force. People connect with others all around the world for a common passion. And so I guess I'm not going to I'm not going to have you speculate on what caused the shooter to do what he did, but what do you think could have happened differently in terms of either community outreach? Like, was he kind of like alone? I'm wondering just kind of why he felt the need to do that. Was it so competitive that it just unfortunately kind of went that way? I heard he was possibly one of the competitors. I mean, just from a standpoint of just being there from the other people, his actions seem so far removed from what an average gamer would kind of, respond to that situation with. Any ideas what happened there?
I mean, from what I've seen from the aftermath is the guy had a lot of mental issues, and, he was able to get a hold of some guns, legally buying them, unfortunately, and, he drove from where he lived to the tournament. I don't think losing in Madden, or I don't think video games did this. I think he had already had his mind made up. He came to the tournament on Saturday and wore the same thing on Sunday. So,
Well, and not only that, but he had the firearm, of course, on his person. So.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing here is, people in general. If the mental stuff, man, like if you're not mentally stable, there's no telling what can happen. And I personally didn't know him. I didn't know the David guy. I didn't know him at all.
Right.
I never met him before in my life. I didn't even speak to him Saturday or Sunday. I never even seen him. And that's kind of crazy to say because I know so many people in Madden, right? Always there's new events, and I came out of retirement for this year for Madden, and I guess he had won a tournament maybe last year or the year before. I'm not exactly sure, but I came out of retirement for Madden, and this was my first one back after taking a couple of years off. I had some other things going on. And, I was going to get into streaming really big. I basically went all into my craft. I got the super setup for streaming, and then this tragedy occurred. And, this is kind of like where we are now. We're just waiting for EA to, announce when the next tournament is, if they're even going to have any more tournaments, and, things like that.
Yeah, and of course, someone in the chat room already, of course, wants to know that when something like this happens, I saw some of your tweets that you put out, but the person in the chat room wants to know, are you seeking counseling? And, I guess from your own experience and to others at the tournament, if they're listening, are you seeking counseling, and what's the best way to kind of cope with what you did? At least, what's your way to cope with what happened?
Yeah, sure. Dealing with PTSD, man, I could have never imagined that surviving was only just the start for something like this. As a top professional Madden player over the past 14 years, talking about feelings and showing vulnerability is not something that I'm good at. It's unexpectedly challenging to be affected in ways that cannot be seen. Mm-hmm. I was familiar with the term PTSD and heard things about, terrifying dreams, inability to sleep, depression, things like that. And it's, PTSD, this whole journey has given me a new level of understanding. And, for me, it's like I see all of it. I'm experiencing the dreams, the mood swings, the hypersensitivity to things. Small example, I went to the bowling alley. I sat down in the chair to put my shoes on, and all of a sudden I hear like boom, boom, and I'm like, whoa, what's that? All it was the balls hitting the floor. And it's like something as simple as that. Your mind can play tricks on you. So yeah, I'm seeking counseling. I'm trying to do, what I need to do as far as that goes. But, like I said, talking to someone and things like that, I've never really been a big fan of that. So this is a whole new experience for me, and it's taking a lot of time. And, I hope that, with time, things can get better.
And of course we're of course wishing for the same thing, and not just for you, but for everyone, of course, at the tournament. I mean, like you said, it's something that you can hear about. I mean, obviously with what happened in recent years with the wars and things like that, you hear about PTSD. It's a growing issue, mental health in general, and especially in the gaming community. There's been a lot of depression, suicidal thoughts, things like that. These are issues that are really, really, really prevalent, but they make you feel isolated, closed off, and like you can't talk about them. And that's probably the worst way to deal with these issues. So I'm glad that you're seeking treatment, and really hope that you find yourself back playing in these tournaments here soon. Now, the response going forward, you mentioned EA has not scheduled a future tournament just yet. We're looking on their website, the Madden Championship Series. What do you think is the proper response for EA? Because obviously EA was hoping to put on an esports tournament to build some hype and some excitement around their video game. And at this point, this kind of tragedy that happened at one of their events kind of defeats the whole purpose of having an esports scene for Madden. What do you let's picture EA listening to this interview. What do you think is the proper way to do this? Obviously, they've started a GoFundMe. They've donated, I believe, $1 million to get things started. For this tragedy, they've reached out. But going forward, what would you like to see from EA? Would you like to see, I don't know, stricter events? Would you like to see, kind of more events and more community outreach? How do you see the esports scene for Madden evolve from this point?
Yeah, so Ben, many players feel that EA hasn't provided adequate or even basic support to survivors. EA did announce a donation of $1 million on the GoFundMe for victims. However, we haven't seen any plan on how to get support or treatment, to the victims. I know every single one of the players that was hit, and a lot of the players have actually stopped playing, and unfortunately this breaks my heart. I would like to see EA step up and have proper security at esports events, proper event locations to house the amount of gamers in a safe, open, filling room. Players really need communication from EA right now, and not to be left in the dark under any circumstances. That's one of the biggest things. And, I hope that, EA makes the entire situation right. We lost two brothers. We watched our friends get shot. A real-life nightmare is among us. And we'll continue to come together as a community and be strong. And I won't quit fighting, for all of the survivors of the Jacksonville shooting. And, I really can't stomach the guys just quitting Madden and giving up. We shouldn't live our lives in fear. And I know it's really tough for a lot of us. Some of us, just really want EA to step up, and, hopefully that can happen.
Yeah, I certainly hope so too. That is one of the most powerful things where, unfortunately, whenever these events do happen, one of the best things that a lot of people kind of come after the whole tragedy, and they come back and say, yes, this happened. Yes, it was horrific, but no, you can't let that dictate how you live your life. You gotta keep doing what you love. And obviously, Madden still seems to be a big part for you. You're still streaming, as I understand it. So, but these tournaments, they do provide a different avenue to, you mentioned there quickly, earn revenue for these players. So I really hope that EA does, kind of continue on with this and develop the scene. Esports in general is on the rise, and I think football, it already has that innate ability to attract, people who are fans of football. And, I think that it's a very, very good crossover for, gamers and non-gamers to find common ground. So I hope the EA definitely does continue to work on this. So let's see. So no next major event, kind of labeled for Madden NFL. I mean, let's see, where else? I mean, obviously, we've talked about the event and, kind of what you're doing. I think we can kind of segue off into, I guess, your plans. You said that you're getting, kind of back into streaming with no tournaments here in the near future. Is that kind of what you're, kind of going for, or are you going to start some kind of community outreach for the Madden players? I mean, what do you see yourself doing here after this?
So, we're still within, it hasn't even been a month yet, right? So it's like right around the month time frame. I think, in gaming, if we back up just a little bit, like gaming is huge and esports is, taking over, and it will be here for many, many generations to come, I feel like. Video games, they get better graphically, they make games more fun, a lot of people love them, and we just seen Ninja, on the cover of, the ESPN magazine, right? So it's like, you see that gaming it's really making its way in the world, and it's huge, and, gaming's here to stay, and, I remember when I was on, ESPN Madden Nation, I was just like, wow, I'm a kid on TV playing Madden, like, it's, it's crazy to think about. So, for me right now, it's been tough to stream. Like, I've had a couple issues with, like, flashbacks and things like that playing Madden, because you're doing something that's making you think about the thing that happened. And it's tough. It's challenging. I think that streaming for me has been really slow. And this entire thing has really hurt the ordeal of streaming, not just for myself, but for many others as well. And, it's like a lot of people don't even want to watch Madden right now. You see a lot of frustration in the community, and that's just another thing where we got to have we support Madden and we support EA. We buy the game every year, we play the game, and this is where we have to have that support from EA, right? So it's like something's got to change, and I feel like a big thing is like I've reached out to a lot of the guys, and a big thing is just trying to stay positive and stay focused, and trying to get on there and stream and do the best you can. And it's tough and challenging at the same time. It's rewarding too. It's like you love Madden. Madden's a competitive game. The game is hard. It's not easy, and the mode we play, you have to put so much time into it. Madden Ultimate Team, like that game mode takes so much time, and when you don't really have that like mindset of, hey, I'm getting up every day and it's going to be fun and I'm going to grind and I'm going to be number one. When you don't have that mindset, it can hurt it, because that mode takes so much time and you really need that.
Yeah, I've seen it before, again with with other things, but you're right. I mean, one of the things I've seen bring up a lot of games is having, of course, positive attitude, but personalities and fun people to watch, fun people to hang out with, and just build up that community around yourself, and then people will come to your game. And I think EA could gain a lot from supporting the players who are those personalities, who are going to bring people to their game. So again, I hope EA definitely does do that. I mentioned earlier, I think EA set up a separate GoFundMe. You have another one yourself. If people have heard about what we've talked about here today, and they want to support you in any kind of way, where's the best place that they can go to, of course, find out more about you and support you in what you're doing and what you're dealing with?
Right. Yeah. So EA did set up a GoFundMe, and that's what we were saying earlier. We don't know the details on that or when that's supposed to go out to help. We haven't received word on that. So for myself, I wasn't going to set up a GoFundMe. I wasn't going to do anything until a very nice lady named Michelle reached out to me, and she asked how she could financially help. And Michelle informed me to create a GoFundMe and not to be embarrassed with something like this, or seeking help at a time like this. And things happen and things take time. So I actually set the GoFundMe up, and it's called Jacksonville Survivor Fund PTSD, and she was the first donator on there. And if you go on there and see that, if you just type it in, Jacksonville Survivor Fund PTSD, it'll pop up.
Right. Yep, and let's see, we just got a link to that, so we'll go ahead and put that in the show notes so people can find that more easily. And you're right, I mean, there's nothing, of course, to be embarrassed about. People's support, especially in the face of something as tragic as what happened. I mean, that's where people really do shine through and obviously support where they can. So we're going to make it real easy for them to find that. And I, of course, just want to say, Ronald, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing. I'm sure it's not easy to talk about and have to relive it. I saw that you've given a couple of interviews to a couple of other publications. I don't know if it hurts or helps to constantly have to explain what happened, but we do want to thank you and sharing with our audience what happened from a first-person perspective.
Yeah, no problem at all, man. And it helps when you have people in your corner. Gail Dickey, the CEO of Gamer World News, she is awesome, man. She feels like a second mom, and Gail has been a great resource and help, not just me, but my entire family. She's the reason that I've been talking to you now.
Yeah, she was actually, and sorry to interrupt you there, but she was actually on the show this past Tuesday. So it was very interesting talking to her. She's a very motivated and intelligent woman. I'm glad that she got in touch with you.
Yeah, she is, man. And it's awesome. The drive that she has is just it's intense. And I was just saying, in the absence of support from EA and things like that. Her support has just meant the world to me and, my family. So, I received some, encouraging words from the Super Bowl champ, Ed Too Tall Jones from the Dallas Cowboys. And, that was pretty awesome to receive something from him. And it's like, being a player and receiving something like that from somebody who's a legend, that's pretty beast, man.
Right.
But I appreciate you guys having me on, man. And, like you said, it's tough to keep talking about it, but at the same time, I'm meeting more people and, getting support, and that's the biggest thing, man. You don't want to live your life in fear, and you want to put the best foot forward and try to keep it moving as best you can. And hopefully, we went through this tragedy, but if I can say this, it's like, we went through a tragedy, but hopefully this can change the way that all future events are ran, and they have that proper security so nothing like this ever happens again.
I'm right there with you. Of course, people in the chat room have been mentioning things like metal detectors and, no backpacks, things like that. There are some very common sense things that happen at other events that EA can obviously take from and, inspire them to make these events safer. And hey, an actual, safe and fun place for people to really show off just how good they are at this game. So, everyone, once again, we have been talking to Mr. Ronald Casey, and you can find more SirusTheVirus TV or over at twitch.tv. And Ronald, hey, until next time, thank you so much for coming on. And I hope next time I interview you, it's going to be for winning a huge tournament. So thanks for coming on.
All right, Ben. Thank you, man.
All right. Have a great one. Bye-bye.
All
right. And everyone, there he goes. We are, of course, going to go off onto commercial break. And in the meantime, everyone stay tuned. More Computer America right after this. Everyone, here we go.
Brother Wolf. 10 years ago, a group of locals banded together to create positive change. We took animals into our homes, held adoption events at local retailers, and talked to the community about our mission to help build a no-kill Asheville. A decade later, we have achieved so many victories for animals in need. There's been so much progress, yet there's still so much to do. As part of our year-long celebration, we encourage you to become a member of our special Compassionate Circle program. With a monthly donation of $10 or more, you will have behind-the-scenes access to the work we are doing at Brother Wolf. Our goal is to reach 1,000 members because we receive no government funding. Working together, we can help build and sustain no-kill communities. Learn more at compassionatecircle.bwar.org. We are a 501c3 tax-deductible organization.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? Low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
800-215-4461. 800-215-4461. 800-215-4461. That's 800-215-4461.
And welcome back to the Computer America Show. It is 33 minutes past the hour as we continue on here. And once again, I want to thank our guest, Ronald Casey, for coming on, talking about the events that happened in Jacksonville, and of course, the future of Madden esports. And yeah, that was obviously, compared to what we normally have, that was pretty heavy, but of course, very interesting. And really a unique chance to, to hear it through someone else's experiences. So I want to thank him for coming on. And if you missed any part of that interview, feel free to check out computeramerica.com. We, of course, have the entirety of the interview backed up, video, audio, and wherever podcasts are heard, be that iHeartRadio, SoundCloud, YouTube. We have it all over the place. You can catch it there. Now, for the next couple of minutes here on the program, we will be doing computer and technology news, where we have a ton of different computer news stories and things like that we should definitely go over. So here we go, computer and technology news, and that is, of course, brought to you by Computer America. Here we go. Now, I think our first story that we're going to do is going to be, let's see, we have a couple of really good ones, some very interesting ones, ones that would lead to a lot of conversation. So I think we're going to start with some of the acquisitions, because those are quick, those are simple, and hey, you should definitely know who owns the content that you're watching. How about this one? We have two that we're going to name right off the bat, and the first one is SiriusXM. So SiriusXM, they are obviously, I was about to say but they are really the satellite radio provider. And they just purchased a company you've probably heard. And if not heard, then you probably already know. SiriusXM acquires Pandora for $3.5 billion. Yes, $3.5 billion with a B. That is a lot of change. So this is coming to us from Engadget, Saqib Shah, talking about rumors of a deal between the two companies have been bubbling since June. Now, Pandora, a search for a buyer is over. SiriusXM, which previously invested $500 million into the music streaming service, is now acquiring it outright in an all-stock deal worth about $3.5 billion, saying that it gives the satellite radio company access to Pandora's 70 million monthly users. Yes, Pandora is still insanely popular even after Spotify, including the 5.6 million paying members signed up to its premium service. They said that Pandora's CEO, who took over for the interim CEO before, says that the massive merger will help it grow its ad business and subscription offerings, saying that the combination creates the world's largest audio entertainment company with more than $7 billion in expected pro forma revenue in 2018. Obviously, that is a combined estimate. That's probably a very bullish estimate, saying that they can make $7 billion. But if the two companies didn't have synergy, then SiriusXM wouldn't have invested $500 million into the service to begin with. This is something of a buddy-buddy partner in crime becoming just simply one company. Now, the move should help Pandora on its path to profitability as it faces off against rivals such as Apple and Spotify. And while for SiriusXM, the acquisition marks the next step in its move out of the car process, they say that this alone helps them move on to Amazon Echo, Fire TV, Sony PS4, Roku, and more. Obviously, if you're looking for the benefit proposition that the two kind of give each other, it's the fact that, well, Pandora needs revenue. They need to do better when it comes to actually monetizing their listeners. SiriusXM does that very well. Everyone who listens to SiriusXM, of course, has subscribed to the service, or quite frankly, rented a car and paid the extra $7. Everyone who listens to SiriusXM is a paying member. Giving that offering and streaming it through Pandora gives Pandora the chance to have more higher quality content that people will hopefully pay for. And then for SiriusXM, they need to find out some way to get away from cars, the idea that you only listen to satellite radio when nothing else is available. That's their value proposition, is that they are now available through Pandora, through every browser, through every smart device, every smart TV, anything like that. Pandora is now the way to get SiriusXM content. How these two are going to play out, how they're going to merge their content and make it available for more people, that one is the one up for debate. But obviously, the two have some synergy, so this isn't an outright surprise. So there's that one, and then we'll talk about the other acquisition and move on to some different stories. This next one, Comcast buys Sky. Now, if you aren't truly familiar with Sky, probably it's because you are not a European audience member. Sky is huge over in Europe. They are akin to NBC, I guess, over here in the United States, as well as a couple of others. Like, Sky's huge. But Sky has been looking to sell off its programming for quite a while now. And they said that, Fox was looking to acquire them. Obviously, if Fox wants to buy something with the combined might of course, Disney behind them, then yeah, Fox is going to be able to buy anything they want. Instead, Comcast came along, and this is why their stock is actually down 7%. I mean, the stock market is its own indicator of its own information, but Comcast acquired Sky, and then their stocks fell 7%. And the reason for that is because Comcast spent $40 billion to purchase Sky as opposed to letting it go to 21st Century Fox. They said that obviously, and well, not obviously, but they said that, and this is one of the analysts for Nathanson LLC, downgraded Comcast stock Monday to neutral, saying that they grossly overpaid for Sky. They also, a number of different analysts out there have downgraded Comcast stock, citing that the company needs to invest instead in the U.S., where it faces growing competition from wireless and online TV rivals. Obviously, bringing Sky content, a lot of it is UK-based, a lot of it is EU-focused, but they did get a lot out of this deal. It's just the question is, did they actually get $40 billion worth of content? And that remains to be seen. They said that Sky serves 23 million customers in 7 countries, including the UK, Ireland, Germany, Austria, Italy, Spain, and Switzerland. From the exclusive partnership with HBO and Showtime, they said that to Sky's original programming, Sky offers a broad range of quality content for European viewers. It's kind of weird because obviously there's only a few large players when it comes to content ownership. And the funny thing is that Fox already owns 40% of Sky, but Comcast would end up as Sky's majority owner if the purchase is completed as such. This was a much cheaper proposition for Fox because they've already invested the money, whereas Comcast is going to have to come in and buy 50, 51, 60% of the company to, kind of get ownership. If Fox wanted to pull out, it could completely decimate Sky. Like, if Fox wanted to pull out of Sky Network and make Comcast foot the entire bill, this could really bite Comcast in the butt. So we're definitely going to have to see what happened or what happens. But Comcast, they had to make an aggressive move. It's just a lot of analysts don't think that this was the particular move to make. So let's see. So with that story said, let's go ahead and move on to the next one. Let's go ahead and move on to our next story. So we went acquisition. Let's do one more real quick, and then we'll skip over to some more interesting stories. This last one actually has to deal with Comcast as well. But instead of their acquisition of Sky, here they've invested in a company called Tile. If you haven't heard of Tile, it's okay because it's not really aimed for consumers, but at consumers. They said that Comcast has made a significant investment in Tile, and that's what TechCrunch has reported, saying that the two companies will work together on products and marketing going forward. They said that the investment was sizable and that the deal follows a move made earlier this year where Tile's tracking technology has been accessible through Xfinity Home. So this is Tile creates software to better track viewership across devices, not just on set-top boxes like obviously Comcast is used to, but of course through different devices and streaming services. They said that Tile is looking to incorporate its technology into other Bluetooth-enabled devices, and that saying that we'd like to embed Tile technology into anything that already uses Bluetooth. The company announced earlier that it will be bringing its tracking technology to Bose headphones, as well as products from Samsonite, Boosted, and Propeller Health. Obviously, you can't just rely on Nielsen ratings anymore. People don't simply watch one thing through their television and that's all the entertainment that they are investing in. Now you have phones, televisions, headphones. You have a lot of ways to stream and consume content. That's where Tile is coming in, and that's where Comcast is hoping to get a clearer, better picture of who their audience actually is, what their ratings actually are, and then, of course, charge advertisers a more appropriate rate. More tracking, as a consumer, take that how you will. But as far as a business move goes, this is a much needed step. Hopefully it works out for them. Now, all right, so as I said, that was a very quick one. Let's see. We have a bunch of other stories. Let's talk about... All right. I actually found this one pretty interesting. Not strictly technology, fair warning. But I found this interesting because I'm from Florida, and treasure happens to be a thing there every once in a while. And when I say treasure, yes, I mean pirate treasure. The Caribbeans are always full of stories about shipwrecks and, finding gold and things like that. Well, one of the more interesting shipwrecks has been Captain Cook. Not Captain Hook, not Peter Pan, but Captain Cook. And looks like after 25 years of research, archaeologists say that they've identified the wreck, where Captain Cook's HMS Endeavour was found off the coast of Rhode Island. Pretty cool. So 250 years ago, Captain Cook and naturalist Sir Joseph Banks set sail on the HMS Endeavour to find the rumored southern continent. Of course, indigenous Australians had known about it for tens of thousands of years. But in 1770, the voyage arrived in Botany Bay and the Australian coast. He was killed in Hawaii during the last of the voyages. There you go, killed in Hawaii. It's pretty scenic. Cook's famous ship had a somewhat less dramatic ending, saying that it returned to Britain and, of course, joined the Royal. It was sold to the Royal Navy. Let's see. Now, of course, back in 1993, they actually found the ship using satellite scans, GPS tracking, sonar to identify the ship. They have pictures of it here within the article. And they even have a bunch of artifacts, obviously, from when this sank back in the 1770s. Let's see. I think we're going to kind of leave it there, but just say the HMS Endeavour, again, Captain Cook's ship, was finally identified and, in fact, was identified as the ship off of Rhode Island. Very, very cool. Like hearing about that. And, they said that they hope that the excavation to unearth the ship happens in 2019. So we'll definitely be hearing more about this particular story. There's that one. Couple of different stories we can kind of go into here. Let's talk about Mojave. Mojave, there's a desert, and now there's an operating system for the macOS that is named after the desert. This includes a couple of updates that we feel Mac users should really be familiar with, and know just what they're getting with this free, emphasize free, update from Apple. Mojave macOS update is now available for download. So all you Mac users who have been waiting patiently, you can go download macOS version 10.14. They said that the free update to Apple's desktop operating system was first announced back in June, and now it has features including Stacks file organization, a redesigned Mac App Store, and of course, my personal favorite, because I hate bright screens, because I play at 3 a.m. and everything needs to be dark. Yes, Mac OS is finally getting a dark mode. Very, very cool. And although the software has been available in public beta for a few months now, the general release means that most of the kinks and bugs should have been fixed. And you can see, some of the changes here. Let's see. Mojave also includes 4 pieces of software that you might recognize as ported versions of the iOS. This includes, again, these are available now on the actual Mac OS, Apple News, Voice Memos, Home, and Stocks. All of them are now available through Mac OS. And of course, these will also be coming to the iPhone and iPad. Well, actually, they've already been available to the iPhone and iPad, but now they're coming to the actual desktop. So you might want to actually check out the article here. We'll have a link to it in the show notes. They give some of the keyboard shortcuts, such as Command Shift 5, and that will bring up some of the new menus. But Mojave, if you've been looking for the update, you can now get it. It's not in beta. It's the full-blown deal. You can go get it now. There's been this story that's been bubbling for quite a while now, and I think we should try to get into it as quickly as we can, but fair warning, it's a pretty complicated topic. And this has to do with China and the US. This might take us through the rest of the show. We'll try to get as much information as we can, but China and the US. As far as internet users go, 2 behemoths. The internet that the United States, has pioneered and a lot of people have access to. If you are used to the internet anywhere other than China, then you have a pretty unifying experience. Of course, there are domains that are available through different countries, and let's say someone in Switzerland is obviously going to have maybe some very specific Swiss websites that they're going to visit or frequent, whereas someone in Australia or the United States. But essentially, anyone can go to google.com and bam, everyone has the same Google. Or you can go to amazon.com and everyone has the same Amazon, maybe a different geolocation, so maybe a few tweaks there. But in general, the internet is the internet, at least everywhere but China. Now, you go into China, and they've pretty much segmented, they have the internet as we know it. They have access to our internet as we know it. But to reach Chinese websites, or for Chinese people to reach websites outside of the quote-unquote Great Firewall of China, that is next to impossible. You have to invest in proxy software. You have to invest in spoofing software. Essentially, you have to make yourself look like, for all intents and purposes, not a Chinese citizen to visit anything not approved by the Chinese government. Why does this matter? It matters because we have now reached the point where we're starting to see 2 separate internets. And this is coming from Eric Schmidt. He is the former chairman of Alphabet, of course, the parent company of Google. And he said at a private event in San Francisco last week, "I think the most likely scenario now is not a splintering, but rather a bifurcation into a Chinese-led internet and a non-Chinese internet led by America." And of course, he said that at the heart of the split is the death of the internet as we once knew it, a unified layer for the transfer of human knowledge. And as the internet has gained more and more power over society in our everyday lives, the need by governments worldwide to tame its engineering and political and moral ends has increased dramatically. What he's saying there is that as the internet has become a more powerful tool, governments across the world have recognized that and said, we need to control this tool as best we can. And there are a number of ways to do that, but the Chinese have chosen to essentially wall everyone else off, and that creates, this splitting of the internet. They're saying that the rules that countries like Spain put in place around media and news didn't split the internet as, of course, as they have predicted. And they said that the economic power of US and China did. Alibaba, Tencent, and Baidu may have declined in value this year, but their combined market cap is still in the trillions of dollars. WeChat, which is owned by Tencent, has more than 1 billion users, and while only 10% of its user base is estimated to be outside of China, the ties are growing as more countries build economic bridges with the mainland. He's saying that sometimes those bridges are quite literal, and you can see those, China actually investing a lot into building physical and digital relationships with countries. They said that, Chinese-made telecom infrastructure, Chinese handsets, increasingly Chinese apps, for all the concerns Congress and national security officials have over Huawei and ZTE, the real fight for the future of the internet is going to be precisely these developing regions having no incumbent technology. What they're saying there, and of course now gets into trade wars and developing countries and their internet access and which internet that they're actually developing. One of the initiatives that China is developing is this, they have a special name for it. It's like one road, one connection or something like that, where China wants to be the internet provider and the content provider and of course the services provider for parts of the Middle East and into Africa. That's where China is looking to grow their economy and their outreach. If they can develop that system along those countries, they're going to have billions of more users and billions of more customers. That's a problem. That's a problem for, I guess, the United States and our ideas and, of course, really Western versus Eastern ideals when it comes to the freedom of information, who should be able to access what. And, hey, there's no way around it. China has very restrictive measures. There's a lot that goes into this. I mean, part of this whole splintering that we're seeing between, again, Chinese-led internet and American-led internet is just very much basically that the Chinese can't use the internet at large, so they have to develop their own. Hence, 1 billion users on a lot of their apps. Now, Americans really don't have a need for WeChat. WeChat isn't something that's commonly used, outside of China. Many Americans have no reason to use Huawei, ZTE, other services that they, Baidu, all these different Chinese companies that they named. Americans already have replacements for that are catered to American or even, European or Australian audiences. So the two internet communities don't have anything to do with each other. There's really not a lot of crossover. And if a company wants to move from one to the other, as we saw with Google, they have to completely redesign their ecosystem and how they operate. That's very costly and, potentially won't even give you that much benefit to even make that investment. So the two are segmenting, and we're starting to see now which internet is going to be the one that takes hold in developing countries. And that's going to make a huge difference in the world of tomorrow. So obviously, looking forward to keeping an eye on that one. That's going to really determine if, which internet means who controls the flow of information into these areas. And just, I really do hope that it's Western internet that's a bit more open and free for information to flow. I hope that obviously that's the one that wins out. But everyone, the music in the background means that we are we're done. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you so much again, Ronald Casey, for joining us here on our program. If you missed the interview or any part of today's show, please check out the podcast version of Computer America. Thank you for tuning into IRN. Thank you for checking us out on Twitch. And thank you for joining us here on Computer America. Tune in tomorrow. I believe, I don't think we have a guest set in stone just yet, but if we don't, computer and technology news. And everyone, have a great day. Thank you so much. Catch you here tomorrow. Bye, everyone. See you then.